right. Oh, that's exciting.
Last alphabetically and last digital.
All right. Wow. I figured that was coming. I didn't know it was next meeting, so that's pretty cool.
Didn't mean to spill the beans, guys. Sorry about that.
You to ruin the big announcement.
This is the most exciting part of the meeting.
That was all we had to talk about today.
What's that, Monique? Welcome.
You're muted.
You're still muted.
The last time we'll have to spend 3 minutes telling everyone, you're muted, you're muted.
Exactly.
Oh wait, look, we've got, or is that just on my husband's computer? Everything is being typed.
Yes.
I'm literally reading what I'm saying.
We've got closed captions for our last meeting.
This meeting is being recorded.
There's Dan, and Don is here. Look, as I said, the band's all together. We're good to go.
I like your hair.
Thank you. My new summer refresh.
It looks good.
Thank you. I needed a little something after COVID. It was the take off all the weight of COVID.
Oh, I definitely get it. I'm just like, oh well.
If only losing the COVID weight were that easy, I would do it. Just like you did.
Well, that's just the Zoom. That's just the Zoom look. All right. I think we are just about at 6:30. We're all here, so I will wait for our signal from home TV. Are we doing home TV?
You are live on home TV at this time.
All right, we're already live. Okay, good. I'm glad everybody got our witty banter. Well, on that note, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Charter Township Meridian Zoning Board of Appeal meeting. Today is the 23rd of June, 2021. And we'll just go through and each of you can state your name and where you are remotely joining from. I am Alexia Mansour. I am joining remotely from Okemos, Michigan. Member Hendrickson.
I'm Scott Hendrickson. I'm joining remotely from Okemos, Michigan.
Member Field Foster.
Monique Field Foster joining remotely from Okemos, Michigan.
Trustee Opsmer.
Trustee Dan Opsmer attending remotely from the city of Lansing.
And Member Kulhanek.
Hi there, Don Kulhanek attending remotely from Okemos, Michigan.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I'm excited to be with you all. And on that note, the first item on our agenda is to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Okay. Well, everybody go ahead at once now. So moved by Member Hendrickson and seconded by Member Field Foster. Does that work for you too? All right. On that note, I will go ahead and we will take a vote unless we have any discussion on the agenda. Okay. This is a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Member Hendrickson?
Yes.
Member Field Foster?
Yes.
Trustee Opsmer?
Yes.
Member Kulhanek?
Yes.
I'm tied tonight. And the chair votes yes, so the agenda has passed. Next on the agenda would be to approve. We have two sets of minutes to approve. I will take a motion on either or both. I don't know which is the technical way we should do, probably one at a time. Is that correct, Keith? Yeah, okay. So this is a motion to, or I'm sorry, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 28th, 2021?
So moved.
Moved by Member Field Foster, seconded by the chair. Does anybody have any discussion regarding the minutes from April 28th? Any corrections or anything that we need to add to the minutes? Okay, motion to approve the minutes from April 28th. Member Hendrickson?
Yes.
Member Field Foster?
Yes.
Trustee Opsmer?
Yes.
Member Kulhanek?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so the minutes from April 28th are approved. This next agenda item is the motion or minutes from May 12th, 2021 meeting. Any corrections or additions or a motion?
I move the adoption of the minutes from May 12th.
Okay, I have a motion
Support.
from Member Hendrickson, seconded by trustee Opsmer. Any other discussion on the minutes from May 12th, 2021? All right, this is a vote to approve the minutes from May 12th. Member Hendrickson,
Yes.
Member Field Foster,
Yes.
trustee Opsmer,
Yes.
Member Kulhanick,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So the minutes for May 12th are approved. Next agenda item would be communications, of which I don't have any here listed. The next item on the agenda would be unfinished business, of which none is listed. So we will move straight into new business, which brings us to ZBA case number 21-06-23-1, EROP LLC 2390 East Federal Drive, Decatur, Illinois 62526. And with that, I will turn it over to Keith.
Okay, good evening. Share my screen here. Did that go?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet.
There we go.
There it goes.
Okay, so ZBA 21-06-23-1 EROP LLC. The applicant is requesting variances in order to construct a drive-through car wash at 2703 Grand River Avenue. There are 3 variances being requested. The first one is section 86-402-1A, is front yard. The front yard setback on Grand River Avenue is 100 feet from the center line of the right of way. Section 86-756-11 is 20-foot landscape buffer setback. And section 86-758-2 is 4-foot building perimeter landscaping. Here's a map that shows the location as well as the zoning. A quick overview. At the May 10th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, a special use permit was granted to allow the construction of a 3,300 square foot drive-through car wash facility. On site, there is currently a 2,873 square foot building that previously contained Paul Revere's Tavern. This building is slated to be demolished in order to make way for the car wash. The property is 0.88 acres in size and is zoned C2 commercial, and it's located at the southeast corner of Grand River and Dawn Avenue. So the front yard setback variance request, the site plan shows the that's proposed building, not existing, has an 80.8 foot front yard setback from the center line of Grand River. So the zoning ordinance requires 100-foot setback from the center line of Grand River for principal arterial streets. And the proposed building will be located approximately 27.5 feet from the street right-of-way line on Grand River Avenue. And this map, if you can see, illustrates the red dotted is the 100-foot setback for the property. So the parking lot landscape buffer is located along Grand River Avenue. The site plan shows it at 3.8 feet, and the zoning ordinance requires 20 feet between the back of the curb and the street right-of-way line. And this landscape buffer is required to contain a vertical screen, which can consist of masonry wall, plant material, or landscape, earth berm, or a combination of those that are supposed to be 3 feet in height. And yeah, so this is used to screen the parking area from the view along the entire length of Grand River there. And this red dashed line here shows where that 20-foot buffer is supposed to be located, and this circled area shows the closest point of 3.8 feet from that street right-of-way line.
Mr. Chapman, can you make that larger?
Yeah, I can zoom in.
Thanks.
Yeah. And certainly we can come back to it too once we're finished here. Are you good? Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. So the building perimeter landscaping, the zoning ordinance requires a 4-foot landscape buffer, and this would be on the west side of the building, in between the building and the parking lot. Inside this buffer is required to be a minimum of 50% landscaped area of grass, ground cover, shrubs, or other living vegetation. So the submitted plan shows a 0-foot landscape buffer between the parking lot and the building. And this kind of just shows approximately the area that I'm referencing. And this table just illustrates the variances that are being requested. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chapman. I'm sure we are going to need to see that picture again because I was with Member Field Foster and wanting to see it a little bit closer to really understand what we're doing. But on that note, is the applicant or any of the applicant's representatives here tonight? And would they like to add anything to Mr. Chapman's presentation? And if so, please just state your full name and your address for the record when you can before you start, please. Thank you.
My name is Erin McMacken. I am representing the applicant. I am the civil engineer. I work with Stonefield Engineering and Design. We're located at 607 Shelby Street, Suite 200, Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, thank you so much. And if you'd like to add anything to Mr. Chapman's presentation or anything else you'd like to say about this case before we get started with our board time and discussing those variances, that would be great.
Yeah, I would like to thank the board tonight for taking the time to hear our request. As Keith had mentioned, I don't know if you went into too much overview about the site, but it's an existing vacant site. It's been vacant, overgrown, and non-conforming for quite a few years now. Working with this unique parcel shape and size, we were able to propose redevelopment that provides a greater building setback from that center line of Grand River and a clear sight distance from Don Ave to Grand River. We believe that all of our variances being requested tonight are justified based on all 8 criteria that Meridian Township reviews. As an MSU alumni, I am proud to be working on this project and presenting something to improve this Grand River corridor and the community as a whole. And with that said, I'll take any questions from the board.
Thank you so much for being here, and just sit tight and we will definitely have questions. I can almost guarantee that. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak on this case for the applicant or any other people from the public that would like to speak on this case?
And we'll remind people that they can use the raise hand feature if they're in the attendee area, and we can give them the ability to speak in there. Alternatively, if you're participating from home via home TV or one of the internet streams that we use, public comment can be made via the telephone number 517-349-1232. One more time, that telephone number is 517-349-1232.
Thank you so much. All right, and I'll give that just a moment. Okay, as I don't see anyone else in the attendees area and no one with their hand raised, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment for the moment. And we will go into our board time. So anyone have any questions to get us rolling and started on this case? Member Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple of questions for staff, if you could clarify. I'm looking at the packet at page 28 here. It's one of the diagrams that the applicant provided. And it appears as though there is a dashed line, trapezoid, I can use my 8th grade geometry, that indicates the 100-yard setback. Is that an more or less accurate depiction of that setback there?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up and see what you're looking at here.
Without having plans to scale in front of me, it looks accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. And then would it be accurate to say that the remainder of that dashed line parallelogram is relatively accurate for the building envelope of this particular parcel? It continues around down to the south. And
Yeah. In terms of like side yard and rear yard setbacks. Yeah.
Right. So, my question to the applicant is, eyeballing this, and this is not, I don't have my protractor out here, but it looks as though if you move the building 15, 20 feet, whatever the variance is, to the south, there would be plenty of room to have that driveway and have cars enter the building and be in compliance 100-foot setback from Grand River. And so my question to you would be, why didn't you do that?
Yeah, so Planning Commission, we had the same discussion with them in both of our meetings. Based off of a prototypical layout, you wouldn't see such short entrances and exits at a car wash. We went ahead and reduced to the absolute minimum, which is 30 feet at an entrance and exit, and that would provide, a standard pickup truck to be able to make that turn into the car wash and out of the car wash.
Can you explain to me why it is you can't meet the criteria for the vegetation buffer, please?
The front yard or the perimeter landscaping?
The perimeter landscaping.
Yes, so that foundation landscaping there, just as a best practice, we don't typically propose plantings that close to a foundation, especially the footings and foundations proposed here as the architect had expressed. However, we did relocate those plantings somewhere we thought was more suitable, which is that next landscaping island to the west. Therefore, it provides a little bit of screening from the vacuums to Dawn Avenue, and would be an increase the number of plantings over the 50% that would be required up against the foundation.
And not that this is necessarily germane to the variances that you're requesting here today. Are you closing off a curb cut at Grand River?
We're closing off 2 curb cuts on Grand River.
Okay. That's all I've got for the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hendrickson. I saw Trustee Opsmer had a question. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair Mansour. So my first question is for Keith and Tim. So this was O'Reilly Auto Parts site. Did they sell the property, or are they anticipating selling?
I believe they're still the owners.
They're still the owners, but so they're no longer looking at developing it as an auto parts store. Okay.
Correct.
So I didn't watch the Planning Commission meeting, and I don't know what discussions they had, but my biggest concern when I look at this is the 20-foot right-of-way buffer, because especially with the Planning Commission looking at form-based code in this area, we want consistency on the service drives and that buffer along the Grand River Avenue frontage. And when you have one building that builds out beyond those buffers, it throws the entire planning off for the corridor. So I would hope that discussion took place at the Planning Commission, but the 100-foot buffer, I don't know, I could live with some differential there, but I'm curious, and I know you guys would have to look, but Tim and Keith, if you could look at the adjacent sites, I'm looking at Google Earth and they look to relatively adhere to the 20-foot landscaping and at least somewhere in the ballpark of 100. But if this site, if the development jots out closer to Grand River, that really disrupts the ability for us to have those service drives connect contiguously down Grand River Avenue, which we've had a very, we've been trying to do that for decades. And a great example on a different segment of Grand River where we've had some failings is, Discount Tire and McDonald's and the strip mall there on the corner of Okemos and Grand River. We haven't been able to connect those three, but everywhere else, the mall area, Best Buy, Meijer, and all those outlets, we have that contiguous service drive. And so I'm worried about the impact of this variance on that planning aspect on the corridor in general, not just on this site. So I guess any reaction from Keith and Tim would be appreciated.
Yeah, so just briefly, I'm looking at some of the surrounding properties. Member Opsimer, I believe you're correct. The majority of them appear to be close to at least the 20-foot setback. There might be a couple that aren't. I will say in terms of the long-term desire to put in the frontage roads, the one option that the community has here, given that they are not requesting a variance for the building, they're actually putting pavement in that area would be potentially to require an easement to allow given that it is pavement. They're certainly not designing it in such a way that would absolutely preclude that road going in the future in some way, potentially.
But the Denny's would be conforming where you've got that roughly 20-foot green belt, and then the service drive, and that service drive for like Denny's would basically dead end into like basically the car wash, the east side of the car wash.
I understand your point with the Denny's, that they would just sort of presumably dead end through their parking lot. Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking more of a true service drive where it's a contiguous road along the front of the buildings where there's no parking backing into it. So it can literally be a drive. But yes, given the current layout of Denny's, you would have a problem.
I think that basically summarizes my biggest concerns. I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Opsimer. Anyone else have any questions or concerns? Member Field Foster, go ahead.
So just in listening to the different questions, and Member Hendrickson kind of got to, I think, one of the questions I had as far as what that 20-foot setback was going to mean as far as cars coming in and out. But there was something that the applicant mentioned as far as the buffers, the vegetated buffers were concerned. And it was not your normal practice to put the vegetation so close to the foundation, and you wanted to put them somewhere else. And as I look at the criteria, I'm trying to figure out how not putting them there would unreasonably prevent you from using the property for a permitted purpose. Because it's one thing where you just, it literally eliminates your ability to put a car wash in there. It's something else to say that, okay, it's just not your practice and you want to put it somewhere else. So I need more, I guess, clarification on how we can overcome that criteria for those two variances.
And feel free if, I'm sorry, is it McMacken, Miss McMacken? Is that how you
got it?
Okay, great. And feel free to answer. I believe that was directed to Miss McMacken. So I just want to make sure that we know who's being asked the question. But yes, feel free to take a stab at that one.
Yeah, oh, I mean, we just envisioned it as the hardship of having those plantings conflict with our building foundation. But if that's, something you guys absolutely want to see, we can relay that to the applicant and get that revised, and maybe put in a 4-foot grass strip along that frontage. It doesn't really specify plantings, it just says 50%. So we can look at, maybe avoiding some of the footing areas and planting 50% of that if that's something that absolutely needs to be done.
And not being an engineer, so when you mean that it impacts your foundation, explain that a little bit more.
So just the moisture content along a building is not typically a good practice. Trees would typically be 10, 15 feet away, but small shrubs and plantings, we like to see 3 feet away. And, additionally, all of our utilities enter the building on that west side. And so avoiding utility conflicts along that side as well.
May I ask to Ms. McMacken, and to specify, this is in regards to the variance that is for the building perimeter landscape, not necessarily the parking lot landscape buffer. Is that correct?
Yep, correct.
That you're referring to? Okay. So my question would be regarding the parking lot landscape buffer, and it is similar to what Member Field Foster has just asked about the building perimeter. What is the justification, or I guess the practical difficulty of adding that buffer at all? I'm really having a hard time getting to that, why that 20 feet is not able to be granted.
You're directing that towards me, the 20-foot buffer at the north?
That's for you, yeah. Why we're not able to get to that 20 feet, why we're only at 3.8 feet.
Yeah, a little bit repetitive on like the front yard setback, the same reasonings there. Not only do we have this odd shaped lot, but we're also a corner lot bound by not 1, but 2 front yard setbacks. So not only do we need that 20-foot buffer to the north, we always need it on the west as well. So on Dawn Avenue, which we provide that 20-foot buffer on Dawn Avenue, we're able to have the site conform to that. And so again, along with the length of our building, which was bound by the length of the conveyor. So each step in the cleaning process of the car is the length of the building. So that couldn't be reduced. And then, like I said, we reduced the entrance and exit to that minimum of 30 feet on each side, and then kind of split the difference with green space to the north and south. And that's how we ended up with the 3.8-foot buffer.
All right, I think, thank you for answering that. Member Hendrickson, and also, I'm sorry, Member Hendrickson, 1 second. Mr. Chapman, can you pull up the proposed site plan that you had there again, so I can more clearly understand what this.
Yeah, did you want to see the one for the front yard setback or the landscape buffer?
Let's see the one for the front yard setback, because I'm still, based on seeing from the packet, having a hard time understanding where we're. Okay.
You zoom in.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, I think I'm being, excuse me. Oh my gosh, I'm so tongue-tied today. I think I'm beginning to understand. So in green is where their proposed 3.8 perimeter landscape buffer is that correct? So that is the extent of the landscape buffer, and where you have marked out in black there is where Grand River Avenue actually is the actual road. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. And then there's sidewalk, and then this additional green space, and then there's the 3.8 buffer right there.
All right, that visual is very helpful. With that, I will turn it over to Member Hendrickson, who I think had a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple of things I wanted to comment on based on the discussion that has happened since I first spoke. The first comment would be to Trustee Opsimer's point about the form-based code and the right-of-way. So the version of form-based code that we are transmitting to the township board would have the building essentially right up against the road, with some landscape in between, sidewalk and green space. But the building would be much closer, with parking behind, were it to be conforming with that form-based code, with the tenets of the form-based code ordinance that's proposed. I unfortunately was not present for the planning commission meeting when the public hearing occurred on this topic, and gleaned as much as I could from the recording and the minutes of that meeting. But what has sort of stuck in my craw about this particular request, this proposal, well, first of all, it's hard to apply form-based code tenets to this simply because it's not yet ordinance, right? One day it will be. I'd like applicants to conform to it, knowing that it's coming, but there's no mechanism to require them to. But what gets me about this proposal is if the building were on the west side of the property, there would be almost no variances required. And so I feel like a rethinking of the way this site is laid out would solve all the problems that you are required to come here to try to fix. And it's laudable, and certainly one of the township's goals to reduce access points to and from Grand River. And I understand why we would want that, and that is a selling point of the current design. However, you're asking us to essentially break 3 rules for you here, with these variance requests. And given that you could solve all 3 of them simply by moving the building to the other side of the property, to the long side of the trapezoid, I'm struggling with seeing the practical difficulties, especially because in the justification that you provided in the application materials for the variance requests this evening, you made an effort to answer all the questions, and almost all of them were some variation on the shape and size of the parcel is odd, except that I'm looking at this and I'm just sliding that building over to the west side of the property and saying, it's not so odd that you couldn't have found a solution. So it's not really any question unless you have some way to respond to that as to why you didn't place this building on the west side of the property, thereby absolving you of any variance requests that would have brought you before us this evening.
Yeah, we did look at that layout. Ideally, we would love to have the long edge of the building on the long edge of the property. However, that access off of Grand River, it does not work with exiting the car wash. The safety pulling in and out of Grand River using one entrance and having vehicles exiting this car wash and not having any stacking. There'd be a queue stacking up and back into the car wash, or vehicles entering the car wash. Just with the circulation of having to go through the pay stations, enter the car wash and leave. And then having the building on the west side also prevents us from having any access on Dawn Avenue, as the curb cut would be too close to Grand River. So this was overall the layout that worked for this use.
Understand, though, that it may not be the layout that works for the township. And that's what we're wrestling with here today, of course.
Yeah, and the other thing about having the building on the west side is that it's up on the corner. And I know Planning Commission had stressed that people are pulling past the crosswalk to look east down Grand River to try to turn. There's no site clearance right now with that existing building is on the property line. I believe it actually encroaches off the property line, but we're clearing up that site distance as well. So improving safety and traffic in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Member Hendrickson? That was very helpful. Okay. Any of our other members have any questions, or would we like to get started on these criteria?
Just as a point of clarification, are you intending to look at these on block, or are you intending to look at these one by one?
I think we need to look at these one by one, if that's okay with everybody. I think that that makes the most sense, because I think each one has its own kind of differences. So, Keith, I think we're good with the map for now. Is everyone good with that, or do we need that for another moment? Or I guess we can always request that Mr. Chapman bring that back up. Okay, let's dig into the variance criteria, and we will start with the front setback. And I very much appreciate, you know, all of the input and the discussion on this so far, because when it comes to form-based code and where the township is going, I do not have the direct access to that information in the same way that Member Hendrickson and Trustee Opsmer have. So I do definitely appreciate you giving us that information and kind of as an overview to consider. And again, I will stress that as much as we do consider those things, we also very much need to stick to our criteria and try to meet that criteria based on this case in particular. So that being said, our first criteria is unique circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land or structure that are not applicable to other land or structures in the same zoning district. And this is in regards to the front setback. I will say that I do believe that we are in a unique circumstance with this parcel. It just as is right now, I think it is a unique parcel. We have the double frontage and several other issues that this property has seemed to bring up a few times for the ZBA. Anything anyone would like to add to that? Or yes, Member Hendrickson.
I do not believe this is a unique circumstance. I
Okay.
don't. Every other property in the area has frontage on Grand River. Many of the other buildings, especially as we're going through and as they're being redeveloped, have to deal with this. I don't think there's anything unique about this parcel. If Tuffy across the street, can figure out how to get 100 feet back from Grand River, I think, as demonstrated by looking at the site plan, there is a way to build a building that's 100 feet back from the road. I don't think there's anything unique about this parcel.
Okay. Trustee Opsmer.
I would concur with Member Hendrickson on it not being unique, and I would just add that the length north-south of this proposed car wash is 105 feet and change, which is a rather long car wash. So the site conditions, they are trying to pack in this particular use into the site. If you visit any, gas stations frequently have, 40 or 50 foot car washes. So having a smaller use, Paul Revere's was a small tavern on a small parcel. So, you have to conform with the scale of your facility relative to the parcel size. Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. And I do, I definitely hear what you're saying. I think where I'm finding uniqueness in this parcel is the Grand River and the Dawn Avenue entrances and curb cuts there that I'm finding to be unique versus anywhere else in that direct corridor other than the Tuffy. I'd be curious to see if the Tuffy does meet that 100 foot setback, because it seems relatively close to the road. But that's neither here nor there, considering that's not the case we're talking about. But if we as a whole, if we cannot get past the first criteria, we are a sunk ship as far as passing that first variance. So that said, I think we will take the temperature and see if we are all in agreement or disagreement on whether or not there are unique circumstances here. So I'd love to hear from Don and Monique. What are your takes on this scenario?
I can honestly go either way on that one. I think though where I'm going to get hung up is where we always get hung up, and that's on number 4. So it at least as I'm hearing it does not sound like we're going very well to a positive direction. So I have a question, if I could ask of Miss McMacken.
Got it.
Before we finish going through all of these variances, and it does go back to, I think, what Member Hendrickson has asked, what Chairman Mansour has asked, and some of what I was getting at, as well as Trustee Opsimer. And it kind of goes back to the design of the facility. And so my question to you is there an opportunity to go back and redesign this facility? I know you said you looked at moving it towards the western side of the property. I believe Trustee Opsmer mentioned that perhaps making it a smaller footprint could help. And I ask this because, like I mentioned, if we're having problems at number 1, and I already know I have a problem at number 4, and we are tasked with having a unanimous vote on all 8 of these criteria, we're not headed that direction. So the opportunity then is to see if there's something that you can bring back with a different design that either does not require all 3 variances, or maybe not as many variances. I don't know the answer to that question. Perhaps you do.
Yeah, we did look at, like I said, alternate layouts. Ideally, we would have loved to avoid it even coming to ZBA in the first place. Timeline is always huge on projects. We looked, like I said, about putting it on that western side, and the conflict there again was traffic, and it is 15 required stacking spaces before entering the car wash. That's unachievable if we go with that route as well. This layout provided the furthest setback, as well as meeting as many of the zoning ordinance criteria as we could with the shape of this parcel. We already are at a minimum with everything that's typical to a car wash tenant. The length, the entrance, the exit, the number of vacuums, everything is all at a minimum. Drive aisles, everything is more of a minimum than what we would typically propose.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Okay, so thank you, Member Field Foster and Ms. McMacken. I believe Member Kulhanick, how about you? How about what is
Hi
your,
there.
hi, how is what is your thoughts about unique circumstances and or practical difficulties? We'll start there, because I think that going further than that would be frustrating. Or
Well, I think all the members have gone through. I think we all have the same concerns, and here's why I don't think this is a unique circumstance either. I hear the discussion regarding it being a trapezoidal parcel, and certainly we come across oddly shaped parcels, but this is actually a pretty large parcel. A surprisingly large parcel. I've been flipping through my packet and I don't see. I know it's in here somewhere, but as other members have pointed out, it seems like there's other ways that this facility could be oriented, or maybe even other ways it could be scoped. But this doesn't. It just doesn't seem like a unique circumstance, because they have a lot of opportunities to address the problems that are coming up, that the problems that they're asking for these variances for. So just given the overall size of the property, and so from my perspective, I tend to agree that that it's not unique. And yes, I'll probably have further issues with some of the other criteria if we were to get them.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the input. Based on that, and obviously this is regarding the first variance for the front setback. I would say if we cannot, I mean, at this moment, I think I can probably still meet unique criteria. I do very much appreciate and understand where the rest of you are coming from with that. But that being said, if it's not going to meet that first criteria, I don't believe that this variance can move forward. That said, I will go through the other just as to make sure that we are still doing our due diligence as a board. The second criteria is the circumstances are not self-created. That is one that I actually have the bigger problem with here, because I do believe that as a site, to be able to reimagine this site, this is now creating an issue based on this design and this particular proposed plan. These are self-created issues going forward as far as these variances are concerned. Yes, we have the uniqueness of this parcel, in my opinion. However, when it comes to the front setback, we've discussed at length ways that they have designed this property at this moment in this plan that I don't believe get into pre-existing. I believe it is self-created. I will go to criteria number 3. The strict interpretation and enforcement of the literal terms and provisions of this chapter would result in practical difficulties. Again, I think that Member Hendrickson probably said it best in saying that there are many parcels that exist in our township that are able to meet these criteria and able to meet these setbacks, that are also able, that as we move forward, to meet the landscaping and perimeter landscaping ordinances. And therefore I'm not seeing how not meeting those terms and provisions would result in practical difficulties. Anything that anyone would like to add to practical difficulties, or further criteria 4, that the alleged practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. I think that there's been a lot of really helpful suggestions here as far as ways that perhaps the site could have been redesigned. I do hear and acknowledge the applicant in saying that they did look at several other configurations and that this is a minimum. However, I'm seeing, if I compare to a different existing car wash in the township that has 2 vacuums and a fully functional car wash, it seems like it's possible, and to be a more minimal impact and a more minimal size is something that would be possible. Anything that anyone would like to add? I think Member Field Foster has already said this is where she got hung up. So, all right.
I think the only thing that I would add that also gets to your point is, at the end of the day, these variances go with the property. And so just thinking of future use is kind of, that's concerning as well. So I definitely, want to say I respect and definitely hear the safety concerns that the applicant was trying to address in the location of the property. I just go back to, and again, I'm not an engineer, but I go back to, your point about there could be some other minimal designs that could go into this that would not impact the property in such a way that, should this business leave for any reason, that we now have a variance that we did not necessarily want to be in that location.
I think that's an excellent point about the longevity of these variances, and they're in perpetuity, stays with the property. So I think that is something to consider and thoughtful. That said, criteria 5 is granting the variance as a minimum action that will make possible for the use of land or structure in a manner which is not contrary to public interest and which would carry out the spirit of the zoning ordinance, secure public safety, and provide substantial justice. I think that's actually in direct relationship to what Member Field Foster was just saying. Granting this variance in perpetuity for this parcel would potentially open up the township to other issues down the line. And I don't believe that that's a minimum action. I think that there is possibilities here. I understand very much what the applicant was saying. I just hope that there's some other thoughts and ideas that can go into this proposed plan. Let's see. Criteria number 6, granting the variance will not adversely affect adjacent land or the essential character in the vicinity of the property. And I think we've had some discussion about this regarding the form-based code, the potential addition of service drive and things. I know we can't consider those directly, but I will say that while this particular design may not adversely affect the land and actually could improve that corridor in that area that has had, you know, the vacant parcel there for quite some time. Down the line, it may change. And since this lasts with the parcel, I think that's something to consider. Criteria 7, the conditions pertaining to the land or structure are not so general or recurrent in nature as to make the formulation of a general regulation for such conditions practicable. I could meet that. I don't think that it's anything so recurrent that we would need to discuss further with any other bodies. And criteria number 8, granting the variance will be generally consistent with public interest and the purposes and intent of this chapter. That one I struggle with a little bit too. So that's where we are with the criteria for this variance number 1. I would love to hear from any of you if you have any thoughts going forward with a motion, or if you would like to go into variance 2 and 3 or separately, or if you'd like to kind of come back and bring this all together, because I think if we're not able to meet variance 1 with the front setback, then variance 2 and 3 become a little bit less, I want to say less important. I know that that's not a good way to describe it, but yes, Member Hendrickson.
Thank you, Chair Menster. I think if I could, I have an idea of what you're getting at, and I've been thinking about this since we started going through the criteria one by one on variance 1, which is if the majority of us do not agree that unique circumstances exist for this parcel, that is true for every variance that we would consider on this parcel, at least in my opinion. And so if we can't get to a yes on criteria 1 for variance 1, my thought is we won't be getting to a yes on criteria 1 in variance 2 and 3 also. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths, but that would be my contention. And so I agree with everything you said on the other criteria that we went through. I'm prepared to make a motion if it's suitable at this time to deny all 3 variances for failure to meet the unique criteria, the unique circumstances criteria in each case.
If I may, is there any opportunity to maybe table our application, allowing us to get additional evidence and justification to bring back to you guys for additional review?
Oh, we'll go to Director Schmidt.
So my advice to the board is this: anytime I have ever had an applicant make that request, I have asked the board to grant it, to give them an additional opportunity to provide information. It's a good practice to fall into. Typically, I will say that I also only do that once. Once you've had an opportunity to get some feedback and want to make some changes or provide additional information, that's great. but that's a one-time opportunity. And that is my professional advice that I would give to any board I'm in front of.
Thank you, Director Schmidt. We appreciate that. And I would tend to agree as chair. I would say that I think that that's a fair way to approach this case. I also would like to add to what Member Hendrickson was saying, and thank you for summarizing what I was getting to, which was that if we were not able to meet it for variance 1, we would not be able to reach the criteria for variance 2 and 3. That said, I am very open to tabling this as necessary if the other members would agree with that. However, I do think we have some strong feelings here about this. So I would say that I would love to hear a motion on that if somebody is willing to put that forward, but also perhaps giving a little bit more information to the applicant as far as what I hope that you know, Ms. McMacken, that you've heard kind of some of the concerns and issues that we seem to be coming through. And I will say again, even just reading through the packet materials, that a lot of the answers to the different variance requests were that the existing parcel is non-conforming, therefore we're going to be less non-conforming, so that's why we should be granted this. And I think that now, having gone through this process, you can probably see that we have a little bit more stringent of a requirement as far as what we are interested in seeing, what we need to hear about planning, about numbers, about, you know, parking spaces, about configuration, about that buffer, and, you know, these things. We do really look very closely at those things. So I think there needs to be a little bit more information there for us to be able to really dig in and understand the process for this design. I think Member Hendrickson was itching up there to say something, so I'm gonna turn over to him. Go ahead.
So first, I just want thank you. I wanted to I'll withdraw my motion to deny the variance requests, so that we can give the applicants some more time to circle the wagons and provide any additional information that they feel germane. I will say that it's going to be tough to come up with more information that will make this parcel more unique than it currently is. However, you're welcome to take the opportunity to try to do so. And with that, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, Member Hendrickson. Trustee Opsmer, go for it.
Thank you, Chair Mansour. So just to, if we're going to give the applicant more time, I do just want to point out for the applicant that when you look at the Tuffy Auto site, which is on the other side of Dawn Avenue from you, your parcel is 0.88 acres. The parcel on the other side of Dawn Avenue has the same shape, but is roughly half the size of yours. It's probably somewhere between 0.45 and 0.5 acres, just looking at the parcel map. So as it relates to criteria 1, that's one thing that you should give a lot of consideration to. My only other question for the developer would be, and I don't know if this is germane to any of the criteria, but this Paul Revere site does have a lot of mature trees. And so I'm curious if, given the setbacks that you're requesting, which of the trees would be cut down?
We're
Pretty much has
maintaining.
screening around all 4 sides today with mature, canopies.
Ms. McMacken, you can go ahead.
Yeah, we are maintaining 10 of those mature trees, and we'll have to take another look, but the majority of the trees are remaining. I guess a quick question, we will look for more evidence and justification, maybe some communication with MDOT as well, but if we were to change anything with this layout, would that require going back through the Planning Commission?
I think that is a question for Director Schmidt as to whether or not my understanding is that if we table it here, these particular variances, you would be able to
Well, we did lose the chair, so
Uh-oh.
I will step in to
Monique,
briefly.
it's your time to shine.
I will step in to briefly say that I will. It depends on what the changes are. Fundamentally, we'll need to sit down and go through the conversation of what are we changing as it relates to the Planning Commission's previous approval, and we can make a determination there. Certainly, a possibility that it's an entirely administrative change under the provisions of the ordinance, but we can sit down and have that conversation, Ms. McMacken.
Thank you.
And the chair is back. You are on mute.
That's a really exciting way to do our last Zoom meeting, is just for my computer to die mid-sentence. So I'm sorry that I missed your response, Director Schmidt, and hopefully that answered Ms. Mackin's question. All right, that said, since I did miss that, do we have a motion at all regarding the tabling of this discussion? Trustee Opsmer?
I will move to table this item.
Support.
I'm sorry, I'm on my phone now, so I can't see everybody. So who offered support?
That's
Supported
Scott.
by Member Hendrickson.
Member Hendrickson. Okay, great. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to table case number 21-06-23-1 EROP LLC. This would be to table all three variance requests to a later date to be determined by staff as appropriate. And I will go through my voting list here. Member Hendrickson.
Yes.
Member Field Foster.
Yes.
Trustee Opsmer.
Yes.
Member Kulhanick.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So your variance requests have been tabled for the time being. You will be in communication with Mr. Chapman and Director Schmidt as regards to scheduling to come back to a hearing with us. Okay, Ms. McMacken?
Great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll have be able to talk with you soon in person without all the technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak this evening, since we have no other new business? And we will allow a little bit of time for anybody who may be in the audience to call in as well.
You have no telephone calls ringing, ma'am.
Okay. On that note, then we will go ahead and close public comments and go into board member comments. I will just like to say, as it seems that we're officially coming to a Zoom close, just such a fun note of my computer dying. Thank you all for being so incredibly available and patient with all of the technical challenges of the past. What is it now? 13 or 14 months we've been meeting on Zoom. I am very impressed by all of my fellow board members, our alternate members, and our communication or staff members, how flexible we've been, how we've been able to keep doing the township business with this, new technology. I'm just incredibly impressed. So as much as I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of you in person, I am going to miss our cozy little Zooms and our little mishaps that keep things fresh and funny. But I really respect and thank all of you for hanging in and staying members of the board during this challenging time. So with that said, I will turn over if anybody else has board member comments. And if not, then we are officially.
I got one.
Member Field.
Okay.
Foster,
Oh, there's so many. I can't see you all at the same time because now I'm on my phone. So member Field Foster, then member Hendrickson.
All I wanted to do was to basically thank you, Chairman Tour, about your amazing ability to be both flexible, to manage all of these cases. I mean, the comments that I hear from people that I know that watch this, they absolutely love you. And, you know, just your openness, your transparency, your ability to connect with the applicants and just really hear them out. So I want to definitely let you know that you have done an amazing job throughout this entire pandemic, keeping all of us on track, getting the information, going through all of the criteria when you have silence, you know, from the rest of us. So I just want to offer my thanks in that.
Thank you. That means so much. That's really lovely, considering that this has been my entire experience as a chair has been on Zoom. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Member Hendrickson.
We lost him in
We
the,
lost
you know,
him.
like the cool pose there.
Oh boy. Oh, see, it's not just my internet.
No,
boy.
Member Hendrickson is in fact frozen up on us.
Okay. Oh no. We'll give him a moment to come back. Where did he go?
He's got like the Sean Connery pose going.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now I gotta flip through and see this.
Ah, he's
Okay,
back.
there he is. Okay, now we can see you, Scott.
All right. So I'm going to get this out quick before I freeze and drop again.
Yeah.
What she said to Monique's comments. Also, I'm looking forward to seeing Don's face.
I know, right? That's gonna be so exciting.
I know.
Thank
It's
you.
like
Okay,
trolls,
everybody.
angels.
Everybody has to get a life.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you all so much. This Zoom has been a very interesting road we've traveled together, but I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person. Keith, we have a case coming up in July.
I don't think we have anything for the first meeting, but potentially the second meeting.
All right. Chairman Tour, you are on mute.
I won't be here for that first meeting in July, so fingers crossed I don't miss our first in-person meeting. Not that I don't want to see all of you, but I would like to see all of you. All right, on that note, I appreciate you all very much for being here tonight, and the meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.
Goodbye from Zoom for the
Thank you.
last time.
Yes, goodbye, Zoom.
Goodbye. and
Goodbye,
good
Zoom.
riddance.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.